Hello, everybody. This is Denise Barrett, your host of The Real Deal. Here we talk about all kinds of topics relating to buying and selling residential real estate and land. If you are interested in following along to see what topics that we are going to cover, just like and subscribe. You'll get a notification of when we deposit new information. Most often, it is going to be on Tuesdays. So today, we are following up in our land vein. You know, in our earlier conversation, we talked about the possibility of investing in land for both your personal enjoyment and also for your portfolio. And we talked about a couple of areas where we really need to put a lot of attention. So one of those areas was, what's the end game? How long do we anticipate keeping the land? And at what price do we intend to sell? We also talked about what we're going to do with that land in the meantime. Are you going to use it for your personal enjoyment? Are you going to use it for a business venture? Are you going to use it for other people's enjoyment? So when we think about a business venture and personal enjoyment, frankly, for that point, we want to take a look at what's called an agricultural exemption. Now, that's a little bit of a misnomer because you're not exempt from anything. Your property is still going to be taxed, but it is taxed at a much lower rate, which will save you thousands of dollars per year. Now, this is kind of hardwired into the Texas Constitution because the founding fathers knew that the working of land, owning land, and producing crops or livestock on land is very taxing, both physically, right, and on the pocketbook. So my advice to you is, if you are going to invest in land, let's look at land that is A, currently ag exempt, or B, could be useful in the agricultural realm. Now, don't get nervous. You don't have to quit your job. I'm not suggesting that you go all in farmer in order to invest in land, but it is going to require a lot of research on your part. So I'm going to suggest you look into things that really get your juices going, right? So if you are really into blueberries and you love them and you want to grow them, is that a possibility in the land where you are? If you are an animal lover, what kind of animal would you love to raise? They're going to take a lot of work, so it should really be something that really tugs at your heartstrings. So circling back to the crop field, right? So in general, what crops are we talking about? It is going to vary by your state and by your county in your state. So you'll want to reach out to your local authorities to get the nuts and bolts. But in general, we're talking about crops that feed either people or animals. These can be grains, fruits, nuts, hay, grasses, right, for feeding livestock. All of those fall into that category, as well as cotton, which is a fiber crop. And those are also, for the most part, allowable. If you are one of those folks who doesn't really want to deal with land, then look into those kinds of crops. You might even be surprised as to what crops may qualify. In some areas, sunflowers do. So how do you like that? Now, when we're talking about animals, this is where we're talking about you being a very responsible investor, right? There are literally lives at stake based on the decisions that you make. So you want to make really, really sure that you're prepared to be a responsible landowner and animal owner, right? So if we're talking about the land first, you bought the land, right? You already own it. Is it already agriculturally exempt, or could it be? So looking at the lay of the land, what do you have? Do you have wide open spaces? Do you have bushy land? All of those things are usable. For example, If you have a brushy, craggy sort of land, cows don't like it, but goats do. And how many animals can you have? Now, this is going to vary again based on where you are and on weather conditions. So let's say, for example, normally I live in an area where I can have an animal unit, that's what they call them, of 1 cow per acre. But my area is currently in drought. That number may change. And in the same land, you may be able to have 5 sheep, 5 goats. You may be able to have chickens, but there are a lot of qualifying criteria that falls into poultry, so you want to take a look at that. And horses it's a touchy one. It's going to depend on where you are and what you're using the horses for. If you are raising horses for your business use, you're a cattle rancher and you use horses for the management of cattle, it is possible that the facilities and the land area for horses could be agriculturally exempt. If you're using horses for pleasure or for showing, they may not be agriculturally exempt. So I don't want you to jump into this thinking you can become a gentleman horse breeder and still be ag exempt. Now, horses got to eat, and the land used to produce the hay to feed them could be agriculturally exempt. So how much land are we talking about? Well, depends. If we are talking about the land that I'm looking for land to raise bees and have a wildflower meadow. In that circumstance, I can get away with 5 to 10 acres. I want to have 1 acre reserved for buildings, right? Places to hold equipment, production facilities. You'll want to have that same acre for your property. If you're going to live on the property, 1 acre will be reserved for your home and for your outbuildings, barns, stables, and so forth. So you'll want to build that in to your land purchase. Let's say I want to have 20 acres on which I want to have cattle, but I want to live there too. Then you would purchase 21 or more acres. Does that make sense? So there are some things to wrap your head around. The whole time I've been talking, you've been able to see some commodities for your agricultural exemption, all of which will bring you some heartache. They're going to require work, but they can also bring a tremendous amount of satisfaction and joy. And if you are in the enviable position of having a bumper crop of whatever, I hope you will seriously consider giving to your neighbors and helping them if they're in a tough spot. You can reach out to your local organizations regarding donations of whatever crops or services that you have. So I hope you'll think about that. I hope you'll think about being a conscientious steward of the land and animals that you have taken under your care. So if you have anything that you would like us to cover, just go ahead and put it in the comments. We will be happy to add it into our rotation. If you have any follow-up questions on this topic, please reach out. I'm more than happy to talk to you about your specific needs. So thanks so much for joining me. I loved having you here, and I'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.